Today I'm going to do an exploration on the Field Commander / Fleet Commander series from DVG Games or Dan Verssen Games. Now, DVG Games focuses predominantly on solitaire games. They have some opposed games, but a lot of their titles focus on solitaire play and focus on kind of that narrative experience of you playing against the game. The game has a built-in AI or artificial intelligence, which keeps pressing on you, and you're making decisions to try to overcome that. And those are set in a historical context. Now, the Field Commander and Fleet Commander series puts you in the shoes of some famous generals. Rommel, Alexander, Napoleon, and the Fleet Commander series kind of puts you in the shoes of Nimitz, but it's a little bit different than the Field Commander series, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go through that. So I'm going to start with the first one that I have. I think it's the first one in the series, and that is Field Commander Rommel. Now, this is, I believe, the first edition. There's, I think, a deluxe edition that came out that might have mounted boards and what have you. But this first one I have is Field Commander Rommel. And as you'll see as we go through these, that there was kind of a progression on these games. They got a little bit better, a little bit different, a little bit more challenging, and had applied different concepts as they went through. This is the map for 1940 France. In Field Commander Rommel, you've got several different campaigns. You got North Africa 41, and you also got D-Day. So those are the three primary campaigns that Rommel was involved in. These are paper maps. I believe in the deluxe edition they might have come mounted and had some better components. But as you can see here, these are like area movement. You're going to have your forces represented by counters here, and you're going to be moving into these areas and trying to secure objectives. You have your turn track, and then you have what the Allied orders are. You're playing the Germans, in this case, the Germans versus the French in 1940, and then you'll roll on this chart, and this is going to say how the French react to that and how that happens. So, and then you have you have all your charts on the map itself. You have your setup, you have Allied resupply, you have battle plans. Battle plans are kind of like combat modifiers that you're going to use during the game to kind of change up the play. It's not just a static play. Depending on what battle plans you use, going to modify the gameplay. And the counters are relatively basic. They're going to have, it's a dice game where you have to roll that number or less to hit, and then that's on attack. The second number is defense, and then the third number is movement, how many areas you can move. You have your sequence of play here, and your goal is to, have a certain amount of, objectives before, there's going to be certain conditions you have to meet before the time runs out, and that's how you win the game, and you'll measure what you did versus, I guess, what happened in real life. So that is Rommel, and focus on World War II, 3 campaigns from Rommel. And that's another thing too, these are all set kind of on campaigns, so they're more operational in sense. They're located to certain areas, so they're not meant to cover the entire war. They're really focusing on the battles or campaigns, mainly the campaigns and operations of those specific leaders or generals that are the subject of the game. The next one that I have is Field Commander Alexander. Now, this one is a little bit more of a deluxe version of the game. Again, it has certain campaigns of Alexander. This is Granacus, and then this comes on a mounted board here. And there's several other campaigns that come with that. You have Issus and Tyre, Siege of Tyre. And this is kind of a unique game, how that one's done out. And then you have Gaugamela. And these are truly operational. I mean, you have your charts on the board, which again, a mounted board. So you have your campaign setup, your campaign options, enemy operations, sequence of play, your supply treasury. You know, there is more of a logistics aspect to the Alexander series. As I said, this is a little bit larger scale than Rommel, and they've added some new features here that really kind of goes into more of the logistics of doing a campaign, especially during this time period, during the ancient time period. And the counters you have, you know, again, it's still a dice game, and there's still some battle plans as well in here. So that is Alexander. Again, it's starting to evolve a little bit more. This is becoming a little bit more of logistics. Not quite strategic, but a little bit definitely more operational in the Alexander, because you're dealing with larger campaigns that cover larger territories involved here. The next one that I have is Field Commander Napoleon. Get these out of the way there. It's kind of nice having the mounted boards here. And that is Field Commander Napoleon. Now, that comes in a really thick box here, because you get a lot of stuff in this box. That's another thing, as you'll see as these progress. Not only do they get a little bit more involved and give you a little bit more of an experience, but they give you a lot more content that you can, you know, interact with. This one has the campaigns of Napoleon. You know, starts off with the Italian campaign, and this deals with both the 1796 and the 1800 one. You also have the Egyptian campaign. You have, and again, these are all mounted, very nicely mounted maps here, and it doesn't take up too much of a footprint because they're not huge maps. This is the 1805 and 1809 Third Coalition Danube campaign. The Prussian campaigns, 1806, 1813. You see the Peninsular campaign, 1807. Well, it starts in 1807, goes up to 1809. Again, there's a lot in this box. The Russian campaign, the infamous Russian campaign of 1812. You need to play some Tchaikovsky while that's going on. And then the 1814 France and the 100 Days. So you have the last days after the Battle of the Nations, and then you have the 1815, which is, you know, leading up to Waterloo. So again, campaign focus, dealing with not quite as large areas that you had in Alexander, but still pretty much larger usually than what was going on. About as large as probably was going on in Rommel. You have your rules for the different campaigns, you know, the setup and starting forces and special rules. You have your sequence of play. You have certain resupply stuff, resupply information. But, you know, this game, one thing that they added to this game is that there is a battle board. So you're going to have your forces, and the forces are separated for the campaign. So like this is for 17, this is for the Egyptian ones. Let's get the right ones out here. So this is some of the ones for 1796. You get your forces here, and very nice counters, very thick, typical DVG thick counters. They punch out pretty good. I think I originally had some issues where they were kind of misprinted and sent me a counter sheet, no issue, a replacement counter sheet, no issue. But there's your counters, and so they're going to be, and I keep them in bags because there's going to be, for each of the different campaigns, there's a lot of different counters, and so I try to keep them by the different campaigns, like by 1796 or 1800 or what have you. You're also going to have your battle commands or battle plans, so to speak. You have those markers as well here that you have, and keep those in here. But one of the things that you add into this game is, instead of just doing combat in the area, you have a battle map. And so this gets a little bit more detailed in that, you know, like for this, for example, here you have like the French reserves, French approach, French front, enemy approach, and enemy reserves. And then their battle, the battle plans will be put out over here because they can affect the game. So you're getting to more of the feel of the Napoleonic era, where you have fronts and reserves and as you approach the battle. So there's somewhat of a tactical maneuvering, so to speak, as you're marshaling your forces forward to the battle. So you have like a battle board now that's added to the game. And so getting a little bit more detail, a little bit more to play with here, and that is Field Commander Napoleon. The last one in the series changes title a little bit. It's Fleet Commander Nimitz. So now we're off the field, we're into the ocean, so we're Fleet Commander Nimitz. Again, big box. Not a lot of separate boards though, so it's not the fact that you're having a lot of different campaigns. This is taking a different approach. This is strategic. So you're having this full layout of the Pacific theater, and you are, the AI, the Japanese are moving east, and their forces are moving through these different nodes here, islands and what have you. And your objective is to secure certain objectives. You have to secure certain objectives based on the scenario. The original game started with scenarios for each year from 42 to 45. And then there's been an expansion that allows you to play like a campaign game from 42 to 45. But there'll be objectives at the end of each of those years, of 42, 43, 44, so on. And if you don't secure those objectives, you either lose the game or the various stages of, it's like mini solitaire games, you're going to get a rating on how you did, whether you're replaced or whether you did well or what have you. But again, this is done on the strategic level, so there's not these concise campaigns. So you're going to have tons of counters here. Again, I keep them separated by the year, so this is for 42, and so you're going to have all your different ship counters. And again, it's a dice game, so you're going to be rolling. There's like to hit numbers, and if you roll this number like 2 or less, you get 1 hit. If you roll 1, hey, you're going to get 2 hits on the enemy. You have battle plans or battle objectives that again, both the Japanese and the U.S. have different ones that come into play during the game. There are ground forces for the game. There is Air Force. There's both carrier-based and land-based. And as you can see here, there's some airfield the quantities or how much land-based air they can have, and that depends upon each of the differently based on the islands. Here's some of the Japanese forces that you get in there. So this is just what you would need for the 42 scenario. Now, what it did keep, just because this is a strategic board, it did keep the battle board concept. So each of the battles are going to be done on a battle board. There's going to be variable turns. You have your setup. You've got your sequence of play or combat for each of the battles. And so it's going to be a variable number of turns depending on certain factors. But you have your different, like the U.S. Navy sets up here, Japanese here, and then, there's Japanese airfield, U.S. airfield. The U.S. will have transports. They need to get to the beaches. Then they get to the foxholes. Then you'll have land combat. So you have your tactical battle board that you got from Field Commander Napoleon, and you do your battles that way. And again, you're trying to get certain objectives. Now, this board here is from the 2nd edition. I got the 2nd edition upgrade kit. You might see a video on that. And so they changed the order. So the AI is here. In the original board, and it's a mounted board, by the way. The original AI was 1 to 10, and the Japanese did certain things. This one goes up to 11. This one goes up to 19, and it gives you the orders of what the Japanese are going to do that turn. Also, it lists out shifts, infantry. There's resupply points. This is an added addition from the 2nd edition, where the Japanese supply is going. Now you track that. Before, you just track the U.S. supply because they can use supply points for reinforcements or to move forces or to buy battle plans. So supply points were kind of the currency. The Japanese resupply, depending on where it's at, gives you modifiers on this chart. So it's going to affect their orders. They're going to start doing more things or higher level things as the war goes on and as they get more supply. So kind of logical, right? They have a lot more supply, they can do a lot more stuff. You got your sequence of play, you got your Japanese forces that come into play, Japanese reinforcements. So you've got a lot of stuff here your turn tracks down here. You've got a lot of information on the board, which is very typical of solitaire games and DVG games. You want to have your sequence of play on the board because you're following that, because solitaire games tend to be very linear, very orderly. You follow this step, this step, this step, rinse and repeat, and keep doing it. With that, sometimes the battles can be a little bit monotonous or redundant, or feel kind of samey. And one of the things that they added in one of the expansions is you can have different battle maps. They have different islands that you put over this section. You keep this section down here, but you just have a thing that you put over this island, and they have there's like 16 islands in that expansion. I mean, you have like Midway and Wake and Marshall and Gilbert, Samoa, New Caledonia, Solomon. I think they might have all the different ones. I don't think they have Okinawa, but they have Iwo Jima. They even have the Hawaiian Islands, and they have Alaska even way up there. That's kind of off this picture frame. So you get a little bit different feel and get a little bit more of a flavor as you do those combats. So there you have it. This is the Field/Fleet Commander series. What do I think about it? I like it. I play most of my games solo for various reasons. And DVG does a real good job. I really do like their solo games. I own a lot of DVG solo games, a lot of DVG games. I've got about 20 of them and about over 100 expansions, because the Warfighter just eats you up. So I like the solo games. I like the way DVG does it. If I wanted to rank these, I'd probably say that my number one is Field Commander Napoleon, mainly because of the subject matter. I like the subject matter more, but this is, to me, is a more complete game. There's a lot there. I like how everything works together. It feels like the culmination of Rommel, Alexander into a very nice game, but adds a little bit more tactical feel with the battle board. So I'd put Field Commander Napoleon first. Second, I would put Field Commander Alexander. Again, based partly on the subject matter. I'm very interested in that subject matter, but I also like how the logistics and operations of this all fit together. Now, the next one's kind of a tough choice, because I like Rommel, but it's not my favorite of the set. It was always a distant third until Nimitz came out. It held on to third place once Nimitz came out. I still like this feel and effect because it feels like a better system. The Field Commander system, I think, is a better contained system because it focuses on operational. So it's kind of coloring within the lines. It stays within its limitations, and it exploits those limitations and what its capabilities are to the fullest extent. The last one I would have, and I'm not saying this is a bad game by being fourth, but my last one on the list would be Nimitz. I like the subject matter here. I find it more interesting than the Rommel subject matter because it's kind of limited. There's only 3 campaigns. But this one, struggles a little bit going strategic. I've talked about this in some previous videos. But good game, solid game, gives you a light. It's not a heavy Pacific experience. If you want that, get Empire of the Sun. Empire of the Sun's an excellent game. Get Empire of the Sun if you want a deep experience. Or there's the new Pacific game from Mark Herman, which is the reprint of one of his previous games. That's kind of a beast. Go that route if you want deep and heavy and crunchy and chromy. This one's a lighter experience, and so can give you that feel without the same kind of effort or time constraints. And plus, this plays solo. I mean, Empire of the Sun plays solo too, but that's a very heavy solo system to get into. This one is built for solo, and so runs at that speed very well. So good game. It's just that expanding it to strategic kind of showed some of the weaknesses of the system. I think this system as a whole fits better into the operational sense. Expanding it to strategic, it has a hard time. I think it doesn't model like through the operations what the Japanese are doing as well. And they've done some stuff to try to fix that. They've come out with Yamamoto fleets and some other things to try to address some of those things. And of course, the second edition, they've tried to address it. And I think it does a fine job. I'll still play it. I'll still invest the time in it. I think it's worth the time. But comparing it to the others in the series, You know, I'm probably going to play those a little bit more, especially if I'm in the mood for that subject matter, because I just think they play better. So this was my exploration. What do you think? What do you think about this series, about these games? Do you agree with my order of it, or is it based on your taste of the period, or do you hate solo games in general? Or what do you think? Like to see a dialogue started. If you like this, please like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Hit the bell when you want to see more. But most importantly, thanks for watching.